And we begin this morning in Washington, where a major vote could change the way we browse the internet. The Federal Communications Commission is expected to roll back Obama-era rules on net neutrality during a vote today.
The regulations are meant to block service providers like Verizon, AT&T and Comcast from controlling what people watch and see online. Julianna Goldman takes us closer to the debate in this edition of Privacy Watch.
Net neutrality has long been a hot-button issue. But with its repeal now all but certain, supporters from celebrities like Alyssa Milano, Cher, and Mark Ruffalo to tech companies like Twitter, Netflix, and Vimeo are up in arms.
High-quality streaming for companies that can afford it.
They're arguing that the freedom of the internet is at stake. The Obama-era rules prevent internet service providers like AT&T and Verizon from treating websites differently and charging more money to reach their customers.
Online, you can say what you want.
Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro wants to keep the rules in place.
Without it, then big companies can decide what content you're going to get at a certain speed and what content you're going to get, say, at a slower speed.
He and 17 other attorneys general have asked the FCC to delay the vote, in part because they say the comment period was hijacked by millions of fake submissions using names of real people.
They stole their voice in our American democracy, and I'm not going to stand for that.
FCC Chairman Ajit Pai, who was appointed by President Trump, says the criticism is overblown.
I'm threatening our democracy? Really?
Since he announced the new plan last month, he says he and his wife have received threatening calls, even ethnic slurs on Twitter.
These comments are utterly absurd. Getting rid of government authority over the internet is the exact opposite of authoritarianism.
All right, CBS News correspondent Julianna Goldman is with us now from Washington. So, Julianna, let's just start with taking us through today's vote. How will it unfold? What will happen?
So the vote is set to the FCC is set to hold its meeting beginning at 10:30 this morning, and there are a number of items on the agenda. The net neutrality issue is expected to be about halfway through. There are 5 FCC commissioners, including its chair, Ajit Pai, who unveiled this new plan last month. 2 Democrats, 3 Republicans. All 3 Republicans support repealing these rules.
Julianna, I know you've been there for a bit. Can you just describe what's going on? The scene behind you looks like there's quite a few people there.
Quite a few people. I mean, people have been camping here overnight. They've been here now and throughout the morning, more protesters have been coming through. They plan to be here for the long run today. Consumer group, we are expected to see the FCC repeal these rules, and the protesters, supporters of net neutrality, say that this is not the end of their fight. We expect consumer groups to file a lawsuit later today.
There are a lot of people who have been very vocal about their support for these Obama-era regulations, certainly celebrities, internet companies. But give us the other side to this argument. Why does the FCC feel that these rules need to be lifted?
Well, what Ajit Pai says, and what opponents of net neutrality say, is that it stifles innovations. Pai has said that net neutrality allows the federal government to micromanage the internet, and internet service providers, internet companies and phone companies say that they already are in favor and promote an open internet. The FCC, the Republicans say that they plan to put back in place one rule that requires web companies to disclose, what they do to web traffic. But opponents say that that's essentially like directing people to reading the fine print.
So, Julianna, how much power does Congress actually have to intervene against the FCC's move?
Well, Congress would have the power to issue a new law to overrule the FCC, but at least in the short term, any action in Congress is really unlikely. And so that's why the other route is for this to be fought out in the courts. And like I mentioned, consumer groups are planning to file a lawsuit later today. And there is already one net neutrality related lawsuit pending at the Supreme Court.
Julianna Goldman in Washington for us. Julianna, thank you. And for more on this, we want to bring in David Nelson. He is a chief strategist at the wealth management firm Belpointe and has been closely following this debate. Dave, thanks so much for taking a few moments here with us. You are anti-net neutrality, which is not a real popular position.
It is not popular
right now.
Chris, it's actually one of the most controversial topics I've ever written about.
Yeah.
You know, after my article a couple of weeks ago, it was pretty harsh. You know, it was this side of death threats, and certainly better than what Ajit Pai received, the chairman of the FCC, almost racist, even attacking his family. So it's pretty deeply divided.
Did you have a good sense that once you did publish this article that the vitriol, you would probably have to deal with the brunt of it? Maybe not to that extent.
Maybe not to that extent. You know, I knew where it was. There's a lot of disinformation. Even just talking to some of the crew, you know, prior to coming on air, a lot of people think this is about censorship. This is nothing about censorship. It's really about priority of service and the next generation of internet. Somebody's going to have to build it, and it's going to cost money. We always talk about we want to protect the next Facebook, the next Amazon, but we're going to have to evolve the infrastructure, and that's going to take a lot of funds.
So let's talk about the argument.
Sure.
The argument against net neutrality.
Okay.
We know the argument in favor is that these big companies have the ability now to control the flow of information. They have the pipelines, and now without net neutrality, they'll be able to control the flow. They'll be able to limit or slow what we can see. Give me the counter argument.
Okay, the counter argument to that is this goes back to 2015. Prior to 2015, the internet was treated as an information service. And if you think about it, under the Clinton administration, who endorsed that light regulatory touch and had the FTC controlling it, the internet became the most dynamic telecommunications platform the world has ever known. So it wasn't really broken. Yeah. I think the ones who really came about with this were really Netflix, Amazon, Google, Facebook. They were in support of net neutrality, and Netflix actually let their service degrade in 2014 deliberately to slow down their service, to get the complaints. That influenced the vote that occurred in 2015. Interestingly, because they've made all the deals that are necessary to have good flow of information for their service, they're largely silent now.
Okay.
We're mostly hearing from Save Our Internet, which is financed by the others.
So why is the narrative out there, though, that the consumer is going to be basically limited in certain things that we've taken for granted for so many years, like what we can and can't see, the speed of what we can and can't get? Are companies like Verizon and AT&T now going to be able to charge us more for better service again?
I think it's a false argument in the following sense. First, let me say, some of the arguments are valid, all right? But regulation isn't going away. This is going to fall back to the Federal Trade Commission, which is even former FCC commissioners like Robert McDowell recently said are well equipped to handle anti-competitive behavior. But you have to understand the technology. Some services like telemedicine applications, high definition video, and services of the future like AI, augmented reality, those services are going to demand a priority of service, because if packets are lost, information is lost in that transferring stream, they just simply don't work. When you're surfing on the web, you lose a packet or two, or you're sending an email, it means nothing. So priority of service for certain applications is a must. And if you think the internet right now is as good as it's ever going to get, and that the only thing that matters is continuity of service, well, then net neutrality is probably your Bible. Then keep it. But I'm for moving on, and we're going to have to move on to mobile and other applications.
Okay, so these companies will be able to afford to invest in the internet, and it will be even better than it is right now if we don't burden them with net neutrality. But they're not just internet companies anymore.
That's
they provide us with cable. They own televisions, and Comcast owns NBC. How do we guarantee that there isn't favoritism in that? Why wouldn't Comcast want to set their system up so that their own subsidiaries benefit from it?
They would. And to be fair, they would. And I'm certain they'll look for ways to try to do that. However,
so net neutrality would protect against that. Net
neutrality in its present form, you're right, it would protect against that. However, at a tremendous cost of innovation in the future. The FTC and other organizations out there, they're going to be looking at them. And if they're doing anything like that, there's plenty they can do to stop them. So, it's a trade-off here. If you could have net neutrality and guarantee that those kind of anti-competitive practices don't happen, or let the FTC handle it. My way if you let them charge for the priority of service, then the internet will advance. And right here in the United States, we're already falling behind. China is going to leapfrog right over us. They're already about mobile. It's not about the pipe that you have at Comcast or AT&T. Those are old-fashioned pipes. And if you look at the market cap of those three companies, Verizon, AT&T, and Comcast, it's about $573 billion. Compared to Amazon, Google, and Facebook, the Holy Trinity, that's $1.8 trillion with $300 billion in revenue coming in every year. I'm not worried about those guys.
So again, tell me why I shouldn't be worried about whether or not these companies will jack up my price, my internet price access, because I can pay for it, or make it extremely difficult for someone else to have access to it.
I think what you're likely to see is tiered services, which is likely what you'll see.
But is that what we want?
Yeah, but are you running a telecommunications company from your home? Probably not.
No.
Okay, you probably don't need the same level of service that a Netflix needs. And Netflix, Facebook, and Amazon, they like to see the broad pipe. They just don't want to pay anything for it. They want the Verizons and the Comcasts of the world to pay for everything. We're going to need tiered services to get to these next levels of applications. It's a trade-off.
Do you see this as the general consumer waking up after this vote with a kind of a difference in service? You talk about, okay,
No.
you don't own a communications company, so it's not going to be that big a deal.
Yeah.
So for the average consumer at home, is this really not as big a deal as we're making this, or will they see some noticeable changes?
I think there's a lot of hysteria out there. Some of these concerns are valid. I brought up a couple of them. Now we have this new wrinkle. We're not even sure we're going to have the vote. The vote is supposed to be at 10:30.
Right, and so there's some lawmakers have been calling for the vote to be delayed.
Delayed because
tell us what's going on with these bots and the comment sections and all this stuff.
Well, there was a comment section, and apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, they did an investigative report, and a lot of the comments they found were fraudulent on both sides of the issue, and they were coming from bots. Some comments were identical in nature, thousands of them, all the same. So that was kind of, I guess, the trigger here. For me, I think it's kind of a Hail Mary pass to try to put this off. I think in the end, it'll largely go the way it's supposed to go. I think it's there's five out there, and it's already projected to go 3-2 against net neutrality.
Do you think Congress intervene at some point, or no?
I'm sorry?
Congress, could you see them intervening here?
I don't think Congress can intervene here. I'm not a legal expert, and I'm certainly not a congressional expert. I don't think they have a role here. I think it's going to fall down to the FCC. But if they put enough pressure on, maybe they'll delay the vote. We'll see.
Do you expect another legal challenge, though? I mean, there was one.
Look, this will last as long as maybe the administration. If there's a changeover in the administration in 2020, we could certainly go back the other way.
Well, David Nelson, we appreciate you coming by and giving us the other side. I hope you don't get tweeted horrible things because you did it.
I have Secret Service protection right outside, so I'll try to make it home.
Thank you so much.